Okay, welcome everyone to School of the Wilds, Outstanding Owls. My name is Jeff Riebe. I'm a naturalist here with Cleveland Metro Parks. I'd like to welcome you here tonight. We're going to be talking about some of my favorite birds in the world, owls, and we're going to be focusing on some of the owls that we find here in Cleveland Metro Parks. And we're not going to cover them all. We're going to cover some of the select ones that we have year-round, and one really special one that we get seasonally in the winter time. So we're going to cover the roles of owls, some of the facts about them, what do they eat, where do they live, and how you can find them, where you can come in Cleveland Metro Parks to search for owls, and sometimes even in your own backyard you might be able to find them. Okay. All right. So we're going to talk about the roles of owls. Owls are predators, so they're very important in controlling the populations of a wide variety of creatures. Now, when people think of owls, they think of them as predators of mice. And yes, they do eat mice. They eat a lot of mice, but they eat other things too. They eat insects, they eat amphibians, they eat reptiles. They eat a lot of the creatures that live in their habitat. So focusing primarily on things that are nocturnal, since owls obviously are hunting at nighttime, they're going to be hunting things like flying squirrels, white-footed mice, deer mice, different types of nocturnal insects. In the summer, they might go after moths like the Luna moth and katydids and things like that. And they're going to use their super senses to hunt for their prey. And we're going to talk more about their super senses in a little bit. And also, owl eggs and even juvenile owls can be a food source for predators. That can be raccoons, it can be other birds of prey. Owl nests are pretty vulnerable. They are often in tree cavities, but they are very vigorously defended by the parent owls. So both the male and the female owl will aggressively defend their nest. They often make loud sounds. They will use their sharp talons to actually try to drive off the predator by striking it very hard. And that can be quite formidable, especially if it's something like a great horned owl that can easily knock a raccoon off of a tree. So they're very good at protecting their young. But that being said, sometimes the young and the eggs are lost to predators. And another thing a lot of people might be surprised by is owls actually will eat other owls. So larger owls will eat smaller owls. And sometimes that's the most likely predator in their environment is other owls, since they're hunting at around the same time. They do try and avoid each other. Obviously, the little ones have to be very aware of their surroundings at all times. Okay, and what do owls eat? Well, owls eat a wide variety of things. Basically, any kind of small animal that lives in their habitat. So they're capable of eating mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish. So owls will use different habitats. Sometimes they'll hunt the creeks for minnows, and other times they might go into the meadow to hunt for insects in the summer. Many of these owls will live in habitat edges. So things like screech owls and great horned owls might hunt sometimes in the forest, and they might hunt sometimes in the meadow. So they will look for whatever is available. Crayfish are a common food for barred owls and also screech owls. In the wintertime, small birds will roost in evergreen trees, especially the arborvitae that we may have in our side yards as hedges. And the owls, like screech owls, will learn to hunt those in the evening. So those little house sparrows that hang out in there may not be as safe as they think. So owls are very versatile. Now, they will also eat dead animals if they have to. So in the cold of winter, Often there's a deep, heavy snow cover, so the mice will actually be under the ground or under the snow in tunnels, and many times they're inaccessible to certain kinds of owls, especially small ones like screech owls, and especially if there's a crust of ice on the top. So they will find dead animals, road-killed rabbits and things like that, and they will do that to survive if they have to. So owls are predators, but they will scavenge if necessary. All right, keep going here. Okay. Where owls live? Well, owls can live in a lot of different types of habitats. Owls can be found in forests, wetlands, industrial parks, agricultural areas. Different kinds of owls will live in different kinds of habitats. Some of them even live in cities, in suburbs. So if you've got a wooded area in your backyard, you might actually have owls in your backyard if you've got some appropriate habitat, maybe some old trees with some hollows in them, and they will attract owls. And they're very often, when juveniles are dispersing, they go through a lot of different territories before they resettle into a place where they can actually have a territory. And some owls are generalists. They can live in a wide variety of habitats. They're able to live in farmlands, they're able to live in deserts, they're able to live in forested areas or the edges of forests. Great horned owls are an example of a generalist owl. They can live just about anywhere. They live throughout North America. They live in the desert Southwest. They live in the eastern forests. They live down in the southern United States and even down into Central America. So they are really, really adaptable. And then the specialists are the opposite. So they are going to be much more particular about where they live and sometimes what they eat. And our residents are going to be with us year round, and the migrants will pass through. So we're going to be mostly focusing on the residents today because those are the ones we're likely to see here in Cleveland Metro Parks. All right, how to find owls? Well, the best way to find owls is to look on the ground. A lot of people are thinking, well, you go look up in a tree for an owl, but actually the best way is to look on the ground. Look for their roosts, look for the places where they hang out. And what I like to do is look for regurgitated owl pellets, droppings or whitewash, which is the kind of looks like white paint scattered at the base of usually an evergreen tree. And sometimes you might find owl feathers, especially during the molting season under those favorite trees. Now, I do have a pellet and I wanted to show this to you. Let me know if you can see this. Trying to hold it up to the camera here. These pellets are regurgitated. I want to make that clear. So this is a dry pellet. And if you break these apart, you can actually find the bones and the fur that the owls cannot digest. And scientists can tell a lot about an owl by looking at pellets and breaking them apart. And you can find bones and feathers and fur. Sometimes you'll find beetle wings and other things that the owl can't digest. And again, these are regurgitated. They come out of the mouth of the owl. And usually you'll find them scattered at the base of the tree, very much like in the photo on the right. Okay. Listening is very important as well. So listen to the birds around you, mobbing birds, wrens, chickadees, jays will often be very vocal when they find an owl, and they will sometimes even get very close to it, hop around in the branches around the owl and try and drive it away or just alert other birds to the owl's presence. So that's a great way to look for owls. I found a lot of owls that way, just listening to the mobbing behavior of these small birds. And also, of course, listening to owls themselves. Listen for their hoots, listen to their calls. Many times barred owls will call during the daytime. And of course at night, usually just at dusk is one of the best times to listen for the owls. That's when they're most likely to be calling and hooting. Looking in pine and hemlock trees, grapevine tangles, at the entrances of tree cavities, these are all great places to search for owls. Keep in mind, they are trying to hide. They're using their camouflage colors to blend in. They're trying to stay out of the prying eyes of those small birds, which tend to harass them. And always, always, always give owls some space. They are reclusive birds by nature. They don't like a lot of attention, and that's how they survive. That's how they live. So if the owl is reacting to you, you're probably too close. And one of the things owls often do when they're nervous is they tighten up their feathers, they kind of squint their eyes, they raise their ear tufts if they have them, and they basically try to make themselves thin and look very much like a broken off branch. And it's sort of what we call a cryptic pose. And it just kind of makes the owl less visible. Okay, moving along here with the owl adaptations. Owls have a lot of adaptations. We could go on for a whole program on owl adaptations, but just a few are the soft fringed feathers with amazing camouflage. And of course, the fringed feathers are for silent flight, so they can sneak up on their prey undetected, and many of their prey items, for example, mice and rabbits, have great hearing. So it's very important for those owls to be able to be silent when they approach. And also the owls are using their hearing to find their prey. So they have to be quiet themselves so they can listen while they're approaching their prey. And I have an owl feather. I'm not sure how well this is going to work, but I want to see if you can see the fringe along the leading edge of the feather right here. And then also the trailing edge is very soft as well. And the surface of the feather is covered with like a velvety pile. And that is a great adaptation for just deadening the sound. So when the feathers hit one another, it muffles the sound, and it's nearly silent when an owl flies. The camouflage, of course, is very important to allow them to be hidden. The raptorial feet or talons of the bird of prey of an owl have very, very sharp nails, which are used for grabbing and holding onto the prey. Owls have a reversible toe, so they can perch with either 2 toes in front, 2 in back, or 3 in front and 1 in back. And that can allow them to maybe get a better hold on their prey. And many owls have feathers that cover their legs all the way down to their toes. So those are special adaptations as well that may help with silent flight. The facial disc of an owl is like a giant ear. So the owl's face, think of the owl's face as like a giant ear. So funneling sound into these large ears that are hidden under the feathers, underneath all of these lush, thick feathers on the side of the head, are giant ears. Now the ear tufts, the feathers that we see on the head of some owls, has nothing to do with hearing. They have nothing to do with hearing at all. They are used for camouflage and for communication with other owls, but they do not serve a purpose with as far as hearing or assisting with hearing. Of course, the large eyes for seeing in dim light, and the hooked beak for tearing apart their prey. I have a great horned owl skull here. Hopefully you can see that. This skull also gives you an idea of just how much feather is on an owl's head, because we think of owls as having kind of flat faces, but you take all the feathers off, look how long their beak is. It's very long. So the feathers really cover a lot of that owl's head and its body as well. So these are all adaptations that help them hunt silently, find their food in the dark, and succeed as a nocturnal predator. Now, we don't often think of owls as prey, but they can be prey. Owls have to worry about larger owls. That's one of the main predators that they're going to encounter in their habitat. So eastern screech owls have to worry about barred owls and great horned owls, and then barred owls have to worry about great horned owls. So that is a major risk to them because they often share the same habitat. Other birds of prey like Cooper's hawks and red-shouldered hawks and red-tailed hawks will also catch owls if they get a chance. Domestic cats will catch screech owls. Raccoons will raid the nests of owls if they are unprotected. Opossums will sometimes do the same, or they might catch a fledgling owl that's out of the nest and vulnerable on the ground. And then foxes and coyotes as well. Even though they're ground-based predators, they are going to have opportunities if the owl catches prey on the ground. Say a great horned owl catches a rabbit on the ground, it's going to be vulnerable to a predator like a coyote, especially if the rabbit's making some noise. That could potentially draw in some predators. So often the owls will try to get the prey into cover or fly up into the tree where they are able to eat their prey with more safety. Okay. Breeding and nesting of owls occurs right about now. So especially great horned owls are well known as being winter nesters. So the female great horned owls will use the nests of red-tailed hawks and sometimes eagles, and they will use those nests and also cavities in trees. They will not do any sort of modification other than maybe scratching a little bit to make it a little bit deeper, removing some leaves. They don't bring sticks to a nest or anything like that. So wintertime is a great time to listen for them, listen for the hooting of the owls. You can sometimes see them at the entrances of their nest cavities, or sometimes you will see the ear tufts poking up over the edge of an old red-tailed hawk nest. Okay, and they will also use nest boxes, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. So breeding season is something that's going to happen right about now. Screech owls and barred owls are a little bit later. Great horned owls are pretty much going on right now in February. All right, and some owls like screech owls will use backyards to nest, especially if you provide them with a nest box. So this nest box is on a purple martin pole in a forest, and it has a baffle to keep the raccoons and squirrels out. Primarily it's a squirrel baffle, because if you put up a screech owl box on a tree in a suburban area, odds are pretty good you're going to get fox squirrels or gray squirrels in that nest box. So if you put up a pole, keep it far enough from the trees that the squirrels can't leap from a tree to the nest box, and put that baffle up, you've got a good chance at attracting screech owls into your backyard, as long as you've got, prey base, you've got enough small animals. This is a suburban backyard where this nest box is, and it's a great habitat for screech owls. Okay, and both of the pair will help in raising the young. So owls start early because it takes a while for them to raise their offspring, especially great horned owls. It takes them many months to become independent. So the female will brood the eggs, she'll sit on the eggs, the male will provide food for her, and as the eggs hatch and grow, the female will start to hunt as well. Once the babies are able to stay warm, the female will go out hunting, and both of them will start to provide food for the offspring. And then gradually, as the babies fledge from the nest, they will initially be pretty poor flyers. They kind of clamber around in the branches, and over time they they become better at flying, and then the parents start to bring food for them and gradually transition them into hunting live prey. So this takes a long time, and about 75% of young birds of prey do not survive their first year. So not a whole lot of them make it. The first year is really a rough time. It's hard to learn how to hunt. There's a lot of danger out there, a lot of predators. Some of these owls will go after prey that's too large. Like a great horned owl might go after a raccoon, a young great horned owl, and get injured. So there's a lot of things that can go wrong. But if they make it through their first year, owls can potentially live to be about 15 years for a screech owl in the wild, and great horned owls have been known to live into their 20s or in captivity even into their 40s. So they can live a long time. All right, we're going to start with the snowy owl, because snowy owls are such a charismatic bird. When people think about owls, really spectacular owls, this one is definitely one of the ones that comes to mind. Snowy owls are not commonly seen here in our area. They're basically a winter specialty, so we'll see them along the marinas, along Lake Erie. Sometimes we'll see them in agricultural areas, perched on a hay bale in the middle of a pasture area or a field, farmer's field. They're a big owl, potentially with a wingspan of 5.5 feet for a big female, and then about 6 pounds potentially for a monster female. And the size, the weight range I've given you here is basically the male to female. So males are going to tend towards the lower end and the females towards the higher end. So male owls are smaller than females pretty much across the board. In some species, it's more dramatic, the size difference, than in others. But snowy owls spend the winter with us. They come down from the north. They'll spend the winter months with us, and then gradually they will start to move back up into the northern, into Canada, and continue with their very migratory nomadic life, and then they will breed up there in the high Arctic. So they're really impressive birds when we get to see them, not common around here. Now, one that is common is the great horned owl. The great horned owl is one of the owls that you're likely to hear, and it is one of the owls that they use a lot in movies. Whenever you're hearing an owl hooting, it's usually a great horned owl call that they're using. And the great horned owls are a common large owl. They can be found just about anywhere. They're extremely adaptable. They can live in a variety of habitats, including disturbed habitats. So they don't have to have pristine forest. In fact, they tend to prefer areas with some disturbance, like industrial parks that have some fields that have been left fallow for a number of years, where there's a lot of rabbits and multiflora rose growing. That's great hunting habitat for great horned owls. And they'll also use the edges of forests. They'll hunt for flying squirrels and other prey in the woods. So they're pretty versatile in what they can do. And to give you an idea of the size, I included this photo of the feet. Barred owls can look similar in size to a great horned owl, but it's really it's very deceptive. The feathers really make them look a lot larger than they are. Great horned owls are much heavier than barred owls, and they have much larger feet, as you can see in this photo. Great horned owls are built for catching large prey. So they will catch rabbits, they will catch striped skunks, which is a prey item that, since owls don't have a good sense of smell, the spray doesn't really affect them too much. So they are often eaten by great horned owls. But they'll eat mice, they'll eat insects, they'll eat small birds, they'll eat a lot of different things. They'll also, of course, eat other owls and hawks if they get an opportunity to. So they're a really tough, formidable predator. They are an apex predator owl, And the only other bird of prey that really could pose a threat to them would be a bald eagle or possibly a peregrine falcon if the great horned owl was flying and the falcon went after it. But they're just a top predator, so really something. And they're really known as the ecological counterpart of the red-tailed hawk. So they will live in very, very similar habitats. Red tails are extremely adaptable too. So just like the great horned owl, they can live in the desert, they can live in the eastern forest, they can live in the north and the south. They're really, really adaptable and versatile. So they live along roads, just like great horned owls, perch along poles. So basically the hawks are perched on those poles in the daytime, and then at nighttime, the owls are doing the same. So they're eating many of the same prey items, meadow voles, rabbits, things like that. But the owl is going to specialize a little bit more on the nocturnal creatures. So anything that's awake during the daytime, squirrels, chipmunks, is going to be red tails, and then the great horned owls are going to go after the skunks and things like that. But there is a lot of overlap in what they eat. They are not necessarily friendly with one another. They will fight over nests. The red tails build them, and the great horned owls try to take them. And very often the great horned owls win, because when the red tails are sleeping at night on the nest, they get bombarded by these great horned owls. And a lot of times it's easier to just leave the nest to these extremely big, big aggressive owls rather than risk being injured or killed. They can build a new nest. And then there's the barred owl. The barred owl is a mid-sized owl that we find here in Cleveland Metro Parks. If you hike our trails during the daytime or in the evening, you're likely to see or hear barred owls. And they're really noted by their large round head, no ear tufts, big dark eyes, yellow beak, and these brownish colored feathers on their back, and kind of a light colored belly with bars on their upper chest and streaks on their lower belly. So they're called a barred owl. It's most common to hear them, and they have a distinctive hoot. Sounds kind of like "who cooks for you all" is usually how it's written. And they are very often heard, especially in the springtime, late winter, early spring. There's a lot of hooting going on. And in the early spring, you also might hear the babies, which can have a very high piercing kind of screeching sound. So very often they're heard before they're seen. And the picture in the middle kind of shows you the size difference between the male and the female. Female's a lot larger than the male in this pair. But again, there's a variable in size, but generally the females are quite a bit bigger than the males. In their habitat, barred owls live in a lot of habitats, wetland habitats, ravines, beach maple climax forests. They like hemlock trees. I've even seen them living in suburban areas if there's enough big trees around. And their range is expanding. Barred owls used to be mostly in the eastern United States, but they've been expanding into the western US in recent years, which is causing some problems with the northern spotted owl. But they are a really, really adaptable owl that catches red squirrels, they catch flying squirrels, and they do occasionally hunt during the day as well. They're mostly adapted towards mid-sized prey, so they're not going to go after the larger prey like the great horned owl. And then the eastern screech. If you're going to see an owl in your backyard, this is likely to be the one. The eastern screech owl is a very small owl and only weighs about 4 to 8 ounces. They come in a reddish color and a grayish color. It's kind of like a chestnut red, and usually the gray ones are a little bit more common here in northeastern Ohio, but we do find the red ones from time to time. And the color has nothing to do with their gender. Either a male or female, can be red or gray. And they're often mixed morph pairs. And I included the photo of the two owls on the right here. Those are the two same individuals as in the other two pictures, except they're molting and they're wet. So just to give you an idea of how much feather is on an owl, owls are much smaller than they appear. Their feathers are very, very thick and dense, helps with insulation. And in the summertime, they molt those feathers, they grow new ones. And during that time, they look pretty rough, and especially if they're molting and they're wet. So this photo gives you a good idea of what they truly look like underneath all those feathers. They're a lot smaller than that, than they look. Okay. Now, I wanted to introduce you guys to one owl real quickly. I do have an eastern screech owl, and I'm going to bring him out so you guys can take a look at him. I'm going to try this out, see how it works with this camera. Okay, so this is an eastern screech owl. And this little guy right here happens to be the same one that was in the photo. And this one is a male. This one is the reddish color. And hopefully he will look at the camera in a minute or two here. Can you see him okay? Let me know if you can see him. And you can see this is a very small owl. They're only about the size of a Coke can, or maybe a little bit bigger. And when you look at these owls, they've got all of the features we expect to see on a bigger owl. They've got the large eyes, the ear tufts that can be raised or lowered. These are kind of down right now. They can raise them and lower them. He's got a lot of really fine feathers around his beak. If you can see those, those are called rictal bristles. And those feathers help him to kind of feel in the dark, like in the nest cavity where it's dark. Might help him find the beaks of the young screech owls. It helps him feed them. Owls have great vision for distance, not so great for close up. So they use those rictal bristles to help them kind of locate food that's underneath them or near their feet, or to feed their young. And yes, they are really cute. I see your comment. They are cute, but this is a small bird's worst nightmare, or a mouse's worst nightmare. These have incredibly powerful talons. These are tough little birds. They may not look like much, but they are really, really well adapted to their job of hunting small animals. I don't know if you can see those little talons right there, but they are needle sharp. All right, I see your comment. Slide to your right a little. Okay, small but mighty. Yes, absolutely. That's a great way to describe it. They have fairly long, rounded wings. Looks really compact. But he's really well built for flying around in the forest. The wings are short enough that he can navigate through the trees really well. His wingspans, like say, about 18 to 24 inches on a screech owl, so quite a bit smaller than a barred owl for sure. All right, does anyone have any questions about owls tonight? Anything that we talked about this little screech owl? All right, well, I want to thank you guys for joining me today. We're going to continue to have another School of the Wilds upcoming with Selby Majeski Bean, and it's going to be spring wildflowers. So it's going to be very topical, coming up soon. I know after this winter, we're going to be really looking forward to that. Also, if you have any additional questions, feel free to email me. My name's Jeff Riebe at jar@clevelandmetroparks.com. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope to see you again really soon at our next School of the Wilds. So have a great evening. Thank you.